Hello everybody and welcome to another video. I lied. We're getting back to Total War Warhammer 3. Today we're doing an army guide. So yeah, we're going to review the Cathay army, which I think has potential as a roster, but a lot of its units are slightly underpowered. So, as usual, well, I haven't done this before, but first, and this will be the plan for the future, we're gonna start off with the legendary lords, but also regular lords. So, for the Forest Lord, we're going to have the Lord Magistrate. The Lord Magistrate is your standard run-of-the-mill generic lord, right? He's okay in melee. He has some buff abilities that are pretty good. But there's not a whole lot to of them. He's not that valuable. You won't see him a ton. You can commit him to some pretty regular fights with low-tier infantry, low-tier heroes. Mostly just keep him back to give the leadership buff that all lords provide. Pop off some abilities onto your minions. Yeah, he also has an optional warhorse mount, which is pretty good for getting around quickly, but it doesn't add a whole ton of him. The mount that's really important is his incredibly valuable and effective Sky Lantern mount. Now, the Sky Lantern mount gives him, just in general, a decent amount of missile damage. Like, normally he'll be, if you give him the Sky Lantern mount, he'll be terrible in melee combat. But he moves faster, only slightly, which is kind of surprising, but he's flying, so he moves faster. He can't land, which is kind of sad. But he will have armor-piercing, relatively high damage missile strength combined with 50 ammo and 275 range. So you can just kind of keep him up there, have him take some pot shots at things down below. You were never really committing him to combat before anyway, so like, I mean, there's really no reason not to give him this Sky Lantern mount. Well, that's gonna be it for the Lord Magistrate, and now on to another lord. Next up, we have the dragon-blooded Shugenagon Lord. I think that's how you pronounce it. I wouldn't know. They are a spellcaster in the lore of Yin, and they have a harmony amplifier of 50%. This is your generic spellcaster lord. They have a couple of abilities to augment your nearby troops, but really, like, mostly just encourage, but really they don't matter much in that regard. You'll just keep them by to throw out spells. The lore of Yin is decent, so yeah, they can be pretty good in a support role. Do not commit them to melee. They will get swamped and absolutely shredded. With 30 armor and only 40 melee defense, they will not stand up to anything except the basicest, most basic of ranged / spellcaster heroes, or extremely low tier infantry like Noblars. Even then, they have a pretty high chance of getting smacked. But she does have two mounts, one being the Warhorse, which is just generally okay. Buffs armor a little bit, buffs speed a little bit, buffs charge bonus a little bit. Just generally, you'll get it maybe to get out of combat. But far superior to this is the Jade Longma, which flies, so hopefully you'll never have to be in combat, and is very, very fast with a speed of 105. So you probably don't have to worry about her getting caught when she's riding a Jade Longma. That's pretty much ideal for her, because then she doesn't have to worry about getting stuck in melee, which she sucks at, and can just smack spells all on top of her horse. Well, that's it for that lord, and on to the next one. Next up on the chopping block, we have Zhao Ming, the Iron Dragon. He is a spellcaster, knowing the lore of Yang. He has a 100% harmony amplifier, which is a great buff. He's armored and a melee expert. Now this is a kind of just a classic legendary lord melee / spellcasting hybrid. He knows a decent amount of spells. He has a decent amount of support. But mainly you'll just have him for, I forgot to mention, the Lord of Metal and Lord of Yang spellcasting. He can turn into a dragon, in which case he will become a decently powerful fighter. Still nothing crazy. Also, the animations are a bit wonky. He won't really, like, absolutely obliterate anything, but he'll do fine in combat. Yeah, he's just overall really good. Good melee stats, good damage, able to transform into a dragon, good spellcaster, good support. So yeah, he's overall just a solid legendary lord. In terms of tactics, you probably want to commit him somewhat to the front lines if he's in his dragon form. If not, you can still have him pick off isolated targets, but I wouldn't put him in the middle of any infantry because he'll just get poked to death. Mostly just keep him back, shoot some spells at things. He's perfectly fine at defending himself in melee, just I wouldn't count on him to obliterate hordes of infantry, despite what his melee stats may suggest. This is like the 5th time I've recorded this section, so I'm getting a bit tired of it. But anyway, the next lord up is Meow Ying. She is a spellcaster, has a harmony amplifier of 100%, is armored, and a melee expert. So, in terms of melee stats, she is a decent fighter, with decent melee attack, decent melee defense, all the things you could want. She has okay animation, so she'll do okay against some infantry. She'll absolutely destroy lords and heroes, like generic lords, generic heroes, she'll wreck them. And that's their armor. She has very low armor piercing, which is kind of surprising. Only 140 armor piercing base damage, which is kind of sad. But she'll do fine. She'll do well. With magical attacks especially. She's a pretty great spellcaster, knowing spells from the Lore of Life and the Lore of Yin, 2 very powerful support things. So she can debuff enemies, buff her friends. Just generally pretty powerful stuff. So in her human form, which is the one I just talked about, you'll probably want to commit her to some fights that you think she can win. You want her to steer clear of elite infantry and powerful fighters. But otherwise she'll do great. Also make sure that she can cast her spells, because that's quite her strong suit. She can transform into a dragon like her brother. And this gives her a lot more weapon strength and makes it armor piercing. It lessens her melee attack and melee defense a little bit. But it's worth it when you're fighting a single target. Especially if that single target has armor, because then you'll just shred through them with ease. Oh, it's really quite fun. Overall, she is a powerful debuff/buff lord, who can do some decent fighting if required, so make sure to make use of her in every way you possibly can. And she'll do great in a lot of occasions. So that's gonna be it, guys, and thanks for watching. This took a tremendous amount of effort because, I mean, I've never done this before. So it was pretty confusing and hard to put together, so I'd really appreciate it if you could drop a like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.